Okay. All right. Thanks very much. So my name is Gerard Sullivan. I am a BIM specialist with Datec Ireland, and we are the sole distributor of Autodesk products here in Ireland. So in keeping with the title of the event, we're going to have a look at some Autodesk solutions for pre-construction planning. So I think you'll all agree that projects are getting more complex. And I suppose as we enter the BIM era, we now have access to more data than we ever would have had before. So I suppose really what we're trying to think about here is how we manage that data and how we can use it to the best to ensure that we are successful in our project outcomes. So I'm only going to concentrate on one product today, and that will be Autodesk Navisworks Manage. All right. So we've heard about interoperability. I was going to bring it up anyway. It was asked as a question. We have heard about our fantastic suite of products. This is just a selection, but we have plant, civil, obviously Revit for architecture, structure, and MEP, and we need these to talk to each other, to be able to collaborate. So I suppose the challenge, and there's obviously a lot of third-party softwares out there as well that we need to work with, and that's just the way the construction industry is. So I suppose the challenge for any product out there, any management tool, is that it can start to aggregate and work with this information. I think that's the power of Navisworks, is that it has up to 40 different design file formats that it can use natively. On top of that then we have IFC, which we've heard about as a collaboration format, and then we've got laser scans like point clouds, which has become very popular. The engine that manages those has improved by about 10 times in the last year. So that's a huge benefit. So what you're seeing here while I'm talking is the video. We're basically aggregating all the file formats together into a single model, which can then be shared. And we can share it via the desktop interface, the managed software, or we can share it via a free viewer as well. So we can give that to all stakeholders. It is quite good as well at navigating extremely large data sets. We talked about the amount of data we now have access to. So we obviously have an overhead there. Navisworks can, I suppose, cache the files, and then when it comes to navigating, reviewing, real time, it's a pretty streamlined process. Okay? So hopefully you just get a flavour of what it can do when it comes to getting in the information. Okay, I'll move on. So the two, I suppose, main features I wanted to concentrate on would be the 4D, the construction simulation, and also clash detection. So when it comes to 4D, the ability to link to a schedule is really what we're focusing on here. That schedule could be Microsoft Project, could be Primavera, could be Asta. It could be just a CSV file that you might have exported out of Excel. So obviously you see inside Microsoft Project we have timeline, we have Gantt chart, we have actual start and end dates, and we have a list of tasks. So what we're seeing inside Navis then is the actual timeline function itself. So we're using the same model. What you don't see in this 2 minutes is, I suppose, the creation or the grouping of the objects to add them to the timeline. But we talked about process earlier, and if you manage this process correctly, you can pretty much streamline how you will attach the information, which is intelligent, to the actual time. We'll link in the actual CSV file, or it could be an MPP, and we get the same output within Navisworks itself. I know the videos are a little bit, quality isn't brilliant on them, but hopefully you'll get to make out what the actual timeline is. We've got the actual start and end, and we can compare the two, so we can actually start to simulate what we're trying to achieve. Okay, so again, there's the option to, I suppose, what we'll say is play around with the dates inside Navis, so we can actually do what-if scenarios. We can then very quickly add in some rules where we can apply existing geometry to the actual timeline, and then we simulate it. So there is no animation going on here in the background. We just begin to see the construction sequence via the dates. We can actually start to color code it, so if something is late, we can actually see it in a different color, or if something is on time, we're going to see it in the correct sequence. So hopefully that just gives you a flavor of the power of the 4D sequencing. But let's take it maybe just beyond the building, okay? So we'll just fast forward onto the next video. And this is, again, maybe slightly like the Lang O'Rourke video where they would have used it maybe as a presentation tool. We might look at it as a presentation tool where we look at the whole site. We start to model the hoarding. start to model the site clearance. We start to model, containers on the site huts, stuff that we normally don't put into the building, but it's still quite important to know what time it's going to be on the site and where it's going to be positioned. You can then start to look at maybe pouring of the slabs, where the trucks need to park, adding your crane in, where the boom goes, so we can actually see, does it interfere with any of the neighbouring buildings. And obviously I'll talk about clash detection, but adding clash into this is quite important as well. Maybe just modelling the scaffolding. We normally don't tend to do that. It's quite important. Where do we store the scaffolding? How can we minimise, the amount of scaffolding we need at any one time? Quite useful within the simulation. And then just maybe, equipment, bringing equipment on site. Where does the crane have to be? Where does the lorry have to park? And how do we lift it in and we don't clash with any of the other parts of the building? So that's a little bit extra. And then if we take it a little step further, where you might use the simulation, or we call it planning, to show how you construct a part of the building. So now I've just taken a wall panel, and in this one, we get it to go. Start it off. We've done something similar. We've actually used Revit to break up the wall in the first place, using the parts, construction parts. And then I've just added, generic timelines. So we can show somebody on site how we put this part of the building together. It's a very simple example. There's obviously more complex areas. But how does the cladding goes on? Even just the sequence. Do we put in the windows before we put on the cladding? Maybe I should have. But we can decide and we can change that if that's a better way to construct it. When does the curtain walling pop in? When do we add glass in? What time does that have to be on site so we can get ready for it? And then we can look at the interior. We can start to look at the plasterboard and how that gets sequenced. So again, beyond just the normal simulations, let's use it with a little bit more intelligence. Okay, let's have a quick look at clash detection then. So if you see, I suppose, clash detection as, planning what you're not going to do, as opposed to planning what you're going to do. So I'm not going to run that duct at 300 mil below the ceiling because there's a 400 mil beam just 20 meters down the road. So just think of it that way. So in this case, you're seeing the clash happening. Again, you're not seeing the background as to the grouping of the objects. We don't tend to clash everything. It does create a bit of a mess. We do it intelligently. We clash maybe first floor structure with first floor MEP, something like that. We can then start to go through the clashes, start to add comments. Again, this is all about sharing the information down the line. We can review the clash so we can see it reviewed. There may be the same clash, but maybe it's clashing with another element in the building as well. In this case, I'm just using transparent views, so we're not actually seeing the full extent, so there's actually a problem with one of the walls as well. So in this case, the M&E loses out. I think that's probably normal. And we'll just add in some comments about moving the equipment. Okay? So once then these clashes have been, I suppose, gone through, I'll just review them all very, very quickly. Obviously add in sketch, just to actually graphically show what needs to be done. And we'll just review them all quickly. Okay, and there's obviously other options you have there, like approved and that. We can then export out a report, and this report could be a HTML file, which is obviously accessible to everybody. We'll get a quick preview of the clash, the comment that was associated with it, the location of the clash, what level it's on, what grid reference, and very, very useful as an interface to be able to see exactly what's going on. And then we go through the process. So we talk about process. We have to fix it. Navisworks isn't the tool we fix it in. We go back to the native application, we make the fix, and then we reload in, which is just what's happening here in the background. I'm just reloading in the MEP, overwriting the existing NWC file, and then just updating the NWF. Lots of file formats, but we can talk about them later. So again, all the clashes are seen as old to start with. We'll then update the batch, and they've all been resolved. So I have fixed them. We can go back, we can see them, we can see even the sketches, but they have been resolved. And that's just the process you will go through. So again, what it says there on the screen, it's about aggregating, it's about supporting the workflow, and maintaining an audit trail as well. These HTML files can be saved as an audit trail of all clashes. Okay, so let's move on. A couple of other things. Autodesk, I suppose, we talk a lot about the cloud. We're starting to provide lots of services in the cloud, and that's just a selection of them, like rendering, energy analysis, structure analysis. So in keeping with the theme, we'll have a look at clash and coordination in the cloud, okay? And this is through a product called Autodesk BIM 360 Glue. Now this isn't available yet, but it will be available towards the end of the year through the reseller channel. But it's just a sneak preview. A lot of you have probably Googled it and have a look. Just a sneak preview to see what it actually does. So it's about extending collaboration. So what do I mean by extending? It's cloud-based. So when we look at Navisworks, it's desktop-based. We can share the files via Buzzsaw, via Vault. We can share them via Dropbox. But the files themselves are what hold the data. In this case, that data is up in the cloud. So it means you have access to it anywhere, anytime. Okay? We can still do design review like we do in Navis. So we can add comments, we can select objects, we can get information from those objects. Adds a little bit extra then because we have activities that are monitored. So anybody who goes into the model, who makes the comment, we have users attached to the information. So their information is logged. We get notifications. We can also link it into Clash. And there's also a mobile app, which I'm going to maybe show you later on, or just download it yourselves. So there's a lot more interaction with the model in this case. And it also links into your email system. So kind of one-click BIM. Click on the object, email the comments back, and you get them on your email system. So how does it work with Navis, I suppose? Like, do they do the same thing? I suppose in this case it complements Navisworks. It extends, I suppose, the collaboration to the cloud, extends it to all the other stakeholders, giving access anywhere, anytime. So if we just have a quick overview, the option that you have available to you is you can glue from Navis, manage or simulate to the cloud. So what this means is that if you go back to my first slide where we talked about 40 file formats, laser scans, IFC, any of that information can be glued to the cloud. So you can put all that information up there. Also, you can start to open the information that you have glued from the cloud in Navisworks. So Navis then gives you the simulation you've seen, the 4D. This year we also have quantification in there. So you have quantification. There's also a really good rendering engine in Navis. And then you have animation. So all that crane animation and all the moving parts, that's obviously part of Navis. So really they're a good fit together. And that's really what we're promoting. So have a look at the mobile app, download it from iTunes. It's free. You have 2 projects up there, Imperial Metric. You can walk around it, have a play with the immersive view. It's really cool. It's kind of getting towards the augmented reality where we could be in the room, holding an iPad, moving around and seeing the model and seeing what's constructed. We're not there yet, but that's where that's going. Okay, that was a quick, I won't even show it because of time, but that's just a quick overview of the iPad and you playing around with it. We can do it over there, but that's pretty much the interface. It's quite cool the way it works. So that's the trial, if anybody wants to download it. If you didn't see that, please visit us at the BIM bar. We're just over there in the corner. I've got Michael Diamond, who's our infrastructure wizard, and also our reseller Diatech, James Lawler. So thank you very much. Hope it was short and sweet.